Hello and welcome to part 2 of our special two-parter episode on the Catholic Church. I should apologize up top if this episode sounds like shit. Matt forgot his recorder. He got to my house, no recorder. He had to use mine. I don't even know if this thing still works. I got it like 5 years ago.
It's looking good so far.
If the episode, but I just want to let you know, if the episode sounds like shit, Matt's phone number is 818-568-0311. So shoot him a text message, give him a call.
Yeah.
Call
what if
him.
it's good though? Leave us a 5-star review.
Call him at 3 in the morning and let him know.
If it's good, you
Eastern
have to leave
time.
us a nice review.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a deal. That's a done deal.
If it sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Like if I did a good job with all this weird stuff, then I feel like that's a 5-star review, not a phone call in the middle of the night, right? I don't know.
What is happening to this country? People are just so like you made a mistake, but then you want to be rewarded for it. Anyway, we got a special guest here today. We tricked an academic into coming into my house. Angela Nagle's here, the author of Kill All Normies.
Hi.
Welcome.
I'm not really an academic, though, I should say.
You're not?
No, I mean, I did a little bit of teaching years ago, but not anymore.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but you wrote a book, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
true, yeah.
They don't let anybody just anybody do that. Unless it's like, I mean, anybody can write like a manifesto, right? But if it's a book,
Sure.
there's some channels you have to go through. Yeah. So I want to ask you, because this is our second episode. We got the riffs out of the way last week with Stav. We were talking about the church and all the what's going on over there.
Yeah, the Italian language, the language of love. How you were saying earlier. This is the kind of podcast we do. I'm sorry, but Mike was saying earlier. I think like anything in Italian, like I want to have sex with little boys, still sounds. It sounds good.
It's, in Italian, it's voglio sesso con bambini.
Yeah.
Voglio sesso con bambini.
Beautiful. What did he say? What did he say? I want to have sex with little boys.
Bambini Piccolo. Matt doesn't have a microphone, so he's not going to be able to talk as much this episode, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. Sorry to all the Matt heads out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway. Yeah, you'll see really quickly. He's got this like kind of like this Midwest mediocrity, you know, where he's just totally okay with failing. There's nothing aspirational about him, you know. Look at that big stupid smile on his face. He's totally fine. Just
Yeah. You
going
gotta
through life like a piece of driftwood.
set a low bar and you'll be happy.
Yeah. So anyway, where was I? No, in Italian, it's voglio sesso. Voglio avere sesso con bambini piccoli. I want to have sex with little boys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what a beautiful language, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, that's the type of show we do.
Oh, yeah. I know. We will every once in a while have people be like, they'll write on our Facebook page, they'll be like, they don't even research anything. What these fucking guys don't. I'm a professor of history, and I was really looking forward to an episode.
Yeah.
And these guys just talked about. Actually, we were talking about older people using technology earlier, and my grandmother, she became a Patreon. Actually, she donated $100
Yeah, what happened?
a month, and actually on our Patreon it says that you have to do an episode in a dress once a month.
Yeah, but that
for every person that
it got
gets to that level.
deleted before it got charged.
What got deleted?
The $100 charge.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, it's
maybe
not up
she
there no
backed
more.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not?
Why?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, let me look it up right now. I'm sorry.
Well, because she called me, so we were talking about. So she's 92 and she uses technology like pretty well. And she called me the other day to be like, "I listened to one of your episodes on YouTube and it was so filthy, and you're better than that." All right. I'm like, all right. Anything else? She's like,
So is the $100 a bribe to clean it up?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so there's no
They can't buy me, though.
Patreon, and yeah, it's a $100 level where I will record in a dress for one episode out of the month.
Yeah.
And I guess we'd have to document that with some type of.
Oh, we're gonna document it.
Some type of picture proof. But nobody's.
And you're paying for the dress, buddy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the $100 is going for.
Yeah. So she's like, it was filthy, and I think you're better than that. And I'm like, thanks. And it was the cartel episode. I don't even remember what she listened to or what we said.
That was a bad one. That was just us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Anyway, Angela, I want to ask you, do you have any personal connection to the Catholic Church? Were you raised in it, or is it?
Yeah, I was raised in it. I mean, I grew up in Ireland, so like I went to a convent school, and some of my teachers were nuns. I had all the sacraments and all that kind of stuff, but I haven't been to mass in maybe a decade.
Okay.
But we did go through. Yeah, I mean, Catholicism still is the dominant religion in Ireland, and even though it's not as religious as it used to be, a lot of the kind of infrastructure is like of the country itself is owned by the Catholic Church. So most of the schools are actually owned by the Catholic Church. They're sort of semi-run by the state, but the actual buildings and the infrastructure is all run by the Catholic Church.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. Italians and Irish are they didn't like each other in this country, but they're so similar in a lot of ways,
Like
mostly they're Catholic.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I was gonna say, isn't the Catholic grip on Ireland loosening? They just voted to legalize abortion, right?
That's right. Well, there had been it had been in the Constitution that it was a total ban. So there was an absolute right to life
Don't suck the baby out of you. You have to give birth to it. That's very important.
You make an excellent point.
Yeah, I know that's what it said. No, but and not only that, but it was a 14-year prison sentence.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, they never actually put that into practice. That's why it was all so stupid, because what was really going on was that, you could still have an abortion, but people would just go to England to do it.
Oh, right.
So it was very much like just sweeping the problem under the rug and not really dealing with it.
Yeah. And conservatives
and then you go to England, you make a day out of it,
Yeah, holiday.
You eat some beans.
Yeah, you see the
whatever you do in
bag.
England. Yeah.
Take a picture of an empty baby chair. I don't know.
I guess some people are a little too casual about abortion.
No, yeah, definitely.
Like, I mean, you should do it, but you are killing something.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So. I also wanted to say there's that Sopranos episode where Tony's uncle has that doctor that he likes named John Kennedy. He's like, I like this doctor. His name's John Kennedy, and Tony's like, geez, all the micks were naming their kids that when Kennedy was president.
But I mean, the Italian Catholicism is much more. I don't know. It's a bit more cultivated and kind of like Irish Catholicism. There is this kind of theory that basically, at a certain point, Irish
You're not
priests...
mad that I said Mick, are you?
No. Irish priests were trained in Ireland, right? So they were all cooped up in this weird little place in the countryside in Ireland. And, so before that, priests would go to the Vatican and they would train and they would go around the world and stuff. So there is this kind of theory that Irish Catholicism became uniquely kind of uncultivated and insular and very harsh and kind of weird because it was because they're trained in that way, Whereas, I mean, I don't know if this is true. This is anecdotal, but people do say that, like, in Italian Catholic culture, you can kind of have an affair and people turn a blind eye and everyone knows that it's going on or whatever.
Wait, you saying Italians aren't faithful to their wives? I don't know about that.
Yeah, whereas in Ireland it's much more the social taboo on the kind of sexual side of things is like much more strong and much more harsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a great grandfather who I think he lived on the 3rd floor of his building and his mistress lived on the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
Well, that's the life. Living that close
really
to your
is.
second family.
Just,
no commute.
Yeah, when he storms out, you don't have to wonder where he is. He's on the 2nd floor, and you can hear him fucking his mistress through the.
I was gonna say playing with his other kids.
Yeah. Yeah, we had this. I went to like CCD that was like once a week, and we had this lady, Mrs. Everest. She ran like the CCD program, and she was like terrifying. And she had a tattoo of a rose on her ankle, and I just remember thinking like that was the scariest thing about her because like you don't know what was in her past. She was like super mean. Like one time she came into our classroom and this kid was wearing a hat. And she's like, "You take that hat off in my church!" Like got in his face and started. And then one time she caught me. We were practicing for First Communion. And she caught me picking my nose, like my finger was like halfway up my nose, and we like made eye contact. And she's like, she starts like yelling at me, makes me go wash my hands. Yeah, but it is a very buttoned up culture. Although we did have this one priest, Father Paul, who like obviously fucked. Like he was Italian, he was tall, and he was bald, but his hair was like slicked back. And I think I talked about him on the last episode. He got new doors, and I remember my parents being like, "Stop showing off with your new doors."
Oh yeah,
and do something for people.
I don't think you said that he fucked last episode. I didn't know that because
I'm sure that he did. You know, because he was too smooth.
Yeah,
you know?
he wore aftershave,
and he wore like tinted
he smelled good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man, it takes me back. Yeah, but and he wore like the tinted glasses too. He was like a cool priest.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I do want to let's talk about Pope Francis a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a couple days since we recorded part 1 or whatever, but today he had the accusation come out against him that he knew about these cover-ups. This letter we were talking about from Vox earlier. You want me to introduce that, or did you want to cover something else?
Well, it seems to be what's happening is like people are mad there's a faction inside the church that's mad at Pope Francis.
Right, conservatives.
There's a conservative faction, and they think that because his acceptance of gays and divorced people who are bad, that's led to pedophilia. And it's almost like I think they're trying to get him to, yeah.
Yeah, and actually one thing I read was saying that the claim is that this conservative faction who say that there is a gay lobby within the church want to even kind of use this as a purge to undo like Vatican II, so like the changes that happened in the 60s. So it would bring the church back to, much more old school.
Yeah, I like the idea that there's like a secret cabal of like gay priests that meet, you know, and they have like a pink collar or something.
Yeah, like
something subtle.
How do we advance the gay priest agenda?
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess there's also accusations that Pope Francis knew about these allegations as well.
Right. So that could be true, but it's like he's also pretty chill to the gay priests and cardinals, right? Pretty chill.
He's pretty chill, yeah. I think what he said was, "Who am I to judge?"
Right.
If someone is gay and they don't want to be gay, it's not their problem.
And like they
should seek God.
That was like a quote, like just taken as he was leaving a place, and then like everyone interpreted what he said throughout the world, and they're like, "I think this means he accepts gay people in the Catholic Church now." And then,
I mean, the thing is, like, okay, so the claim is that, you know, with this Father McGarrick, that basically, or Cardinal, is it, that Pope Francis knew that he had this background with accusations of abuse, most of which, from what I read, were abuse of like seminarian like students. Or harassment of them, I guess. But I don't know. What I always think about these examples when I hear them is like, we know that there's a political motivation potentially, right? So we know that there might be dishonesty on the part of the people making this accusation. Right. It's kind of like a coup, basically, within the church against the Pope. But also, you know, I mean, does the Pope really sign off on and know every detail about every person in every priest and every cardinal in the entire church and the entire world? Like, that seems implausible to me. Like, it's much more plausible that he just, you know,
like there's a stack of papers sitting on his desk that he just never got to.
His secretary just didn't mention it, or like, you know.
Like, it's like in less important news.
Pope Francis' to-do list is like pick up dry cleaning, call my mom, purge the church of pedophiles. You just get around to it.
Yeah, just like an empty check box.
Yeah. I mean, it's worse that he's a dirty communist, Pope Francis, right?
Well, actually, the communist thing is interesting, right? Because, I mean, obviously, you know, his as his name suggests, he's supposed to be kind of following from St. Francis of Assisi, and you know, have you know.
I did my report on him when I was for confirmation.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, he can talk to animals. End of report. He was kind of like the popular saint, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess he's a lot of the kind of the anti-capitalist kind of like streak within the church. You know, tends to come from him, and you know, it was very much about. But what's interesting though is the fact that he is often called a communist or compared to a communist shows how kind of like how loose our conception of communism is in a way, right? Because Francis of Assisi was really an anti-materialist, so it was very much about like shedding your material possessions, you know, returning to kind of spiritual things, and you know, it's about charity and also kind of egalitarian ideas and stuff like that. But the communist idea was the
Vatican. He's like, you guys gotta stop wearing these solid gold hats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah,
you're not coming after my gold hat.
All their beds are made of gold and
so even if you see like paintings of St. Francis of Assisi, always looks, you know, very humble, and the Franciscan like order looked like that too, the sort of brown robes and stuff like that. But I mean, the communist idea was almost exactly the opposite in a way, right? Because it was literally materialism. It was, the whole idea was you have to move through modernity and you have to move through capitalism to get to something else. And it was very much about the idea that like there's no going back, there's nothing good to be found in the past, basically. You have to keep moving forward. So they're only the communists, to the extent that you can call him a communist, it's in a very distinct tradition, which is an anti-materialist kind of pro-charity kind of like egalitarianism.
Interesting. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, you know, Pope Francis.
I think you fucked up, and you ever show up here without that recorder again, we're gonna kick the shit out of you live on the air.
It's gonna be seamless to the listeners. They're not gonna be able to tell a thing.
Yeah,
hopefully.
It is interesting when you go to the Vatican. Everything's like made out of gold.
Yeah,
you know,
you're not allowed to go in certain rooms.
Yeah, it doesn't really work with the whole charity thing.
Yeah, so that's funny. So that other side is like their whole thing is like moving past modernity to get to. So is part of their thinking like, well, I need this solid gold bed before I can figure out. Well,
the church is. I mean, the church is like, that's why he is, I suppose, seen as, you know, a radical or a reformer, maybe even just that. You know, I remember even when he became Pope, wasn't there something about how he like sleeps in this like very simple little room and has like a relatively humble life, but it's kind of like, you know,
put his own IKEA furniture together all by himself.
You know, it's kind of,
and he uses just the tools that come with the bed.
Well, it's so showy because it's like, come on, you're in the Vatican, like, you know, like you.
I think I take the bus, like, yeah.
Lots of people when they go there, lots of Catholics. Like my parents went there and they were actually just really horrified by it because they were just like, Jesus, enough gold. Like, you know, this is, you know, the Catholic Church like has influence over some of the poorest parts of the world. Like, and
that's there. Yeah. If the Vatican was located in what's the place that flooded with Joel Epstein's church, like the Vatican would have also not opened their doors to all the refugees.
Yeah, you could fit like 10 of Joel Epstein's churches in the Vatican.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't they take some of that money and pay off some more kids who got raped? You would think.
Oh,
you know?
You saw that settlement? It was like a 1.35 million was
so
paid
we were
out
watching...
to 35 victims.
Yeah.
What was that? It came out to like 35 grand.
Yeah, we were watching some report today where it's like, I think it was 35. It was like, I think $1.7 million was used to pay off I think 35.
Yeah,
Or
but
3,000
it came out to like
people who are-
$35,000 you'd get as a settlement for
Yeah.
being like abused.
Yeah, that's what it came out to.
And
Which it's like if somebody rapes my dog, I'm getting at least $50,000.
Right.
For the trauma
It's a
that
small
he has to
amount.
go through. Yeah.
Anyway,
Um.
thought that was more.
Well,
Yeah.
they would be completely broke if they actually paid everyone.
Paid what if they were paid what they were worth.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, they'd have to have a garage sale at the Vatican.
And they'd also have to decide which individual how much each individual case was worth.
Right.
Right. If there was repeat abuse, oof.
And then you'd
Tough
find
to
out
joke
you'd find out what the other kids got. You'd be like, "This is fucking bullshit."
yeah.
Yeah, we got to get like Jennifer Lawrence getting equal pay for all abusees.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about this last week, but it's almost like the hacky thing of like, oh yeah, you're a priest, you probably, with the altar boys. But there really is almost like a system where this stuff is just consistently covered up. Like,
Right.
Like they don't even call it like whenever there's reports, they don't even call it
A bombshell.
abuse. What?
Oh no! I thought I was just saying like it's like so common.
A bombshell.
Yeah, it's
What,
not.
do you
a-
work for TMZ or something?
yeah,
You want to call it a bombshell?
yeah. Huge.
But yeah, they're like, don't call it abuse, call it rough housing or wrestling.
Oh right. Yeah. I remember the playbook we were talking
There was
about.
a specific playbook. Yeah. Then there was something where like, there was one priest. So are you familiar with that story out of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, a little bit,
This
yeah.
So the grand jury investigated. They found that like 1,000 kids had been abused by like 300
Yeah.
priests. Bill Donahue said that they're not all priests. Actually, we shouldn't call them priests. That's dishonest to do that.
Yeah. He's like arguing technicalities. He's like, it's not really rape unless it's insertion or whatever. And he's like, so that number is actually much lower than.
Yeah, he's like, actually, not all of them got penetrated.
Right.
Okay, so let's calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the type of guy we're talking about.
Yeah. But so yeah, it was like, yeah, this big report. There was one guy who like said that he was giving kids like a cancer check, and he gave like 40 boys a cancer check.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There was a guy who like, and also like, this kind of stuff really does like ruin people's lives. Like there was a guy who was like, he was very big and he injured some kid's back, and then like the kid got addicted to painkillers and like overdosed. And I don't know, I guess my thing is like, I don't know how people can stay within this organization when they hear about this stuff happening. Because I feel like if somebody was doing that at like the UCB, I would never go there. I would never perform there again. Right?
Yeah. 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 There's like a weird angle though with this takeover, you know, like let's get rid of gays and blaming the pedophilia on gay priests. Like that's like, could you imagine them trying to get rid of gays in UCB?
Yeah, because they want Pope Francis gone.
Right.
Yeah.
But to use that as an excuse, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and I guess my thing too is like it doesn't. You look at, so there's a guy named this guy Worrell, Donald Worrell. He's the Archbishop of Pittsburgh, and so he's come under a lot of scrutiny for this report and stuff. But I don't know. I guess like because I've been watching a few interviews with some of these guys, and it doesn't even seem like they're like sorry. Like it almost feels like it's just a little hiccup they have to deal with, and it's almost like they're mad. They're almost they're inconvenienced for having to respond to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it does seem like that. I think the thing is they feel so embattled, that the church is under attack all the time, which it is. I mean, there is there has been a very powerful like secularizing force in all of the West for the last half century or something. Mm-hmm. So then when a real case of when they have actually done something wrong comes along, it's like they can't really compute it because they're so used to feeling wronged and
feeling like victims.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they hate the people attacking them so much that they don't want to like give them anything.
What do you think of those priests that are like, this is old shit though? Because like all these allegations like date back to 2000. So there's like priests out there being like, this is old shit. Like we've done. Like look at us. We haven't even.
They're like the statute of limitations ran out 5 minutes ago. You can't prosecute anybody.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: Does religion have any like part in your life? Or you said you haven't been to mass in like 10 years.
Yeah.
But what is your?
No, it doesn't. I mean, but I'm not like a real like militant atheist or something like that. I don't think like and even in what's happening in Ireland with the decline of the Catholic Church, I have very mixed feelings about that, because I think that for all of the many, many terrible things about the church, the average kind of like small town in rural Ireland like has a very beautiful church in it, and when I was growing up, when I was in my grandparents' house, there was, and these are people who like would have left school at like age 12 or something, right? But they were so familiar with the history of Western art, for example, because of the Catholic, the way in which they had like Renaissance sculptures and like the Pieta and stuff like that, like little prints and miniatures of all these things around the house, and it provided for people, and very poor people as well, like this kind of transcendent experience and community, and in many ways it was also a kind of almost like a version of the infrastructure of the welfare state, or the stuff that the secular state does now. It kind of created first, so it expanded education enormously all over the world, and it was a positive influence in so many ways, and also when these churches are all gone, when they've been converted into lofts for like really annoying people to live in, and
nightclubs.
It's like it used to be like a church or something. Anyway,
it's just gonna be horrible.
I'm gonna start my lemonade company.
Exactly.
Make artisan lemonade.
Like let's not think that we're replacing this with anything that great, either.
Yeah. That's kind of funny, like, because I guess people do forget that and the role that it did play, especially for people like you said who were like maybe low income or not as educated. They're like, oh, I work in a farm all day, and they're like, wait a minute, don't kill yourself. There's Jesus still,
yeah.
But it did. Do you see that? Do you see that maybe coming back? I mean, if they, I don't know. I don't really like. There's something about Catholicism to me that makes me just want to like stay away from it. Every time I go back to mass, like I'll go back every once in a while on Christmas or Easter or something. There's nothing about it that appeals to me at all. Like, but do you think people will start going back towards some sort of, spiritual?
There's a very weird thing happening, which is like, I notice a lot of, particularly Americans, many of them were like raised in some kind of Protestant faith, and they convert to Catholicism, and they're like ultra traditionalist, and they're on Twitter and they're like sharing like obscure things about saints and stuff like that. I just find it very strange and kind of very interesting. I'm not against it, whatever, but yeah, and they're very much like, they're often like quite brainy, kind of like scholarly people who went to like very elite universities, and they have these very waspy names, and they've all like converted to Catholicism. I don't really know what's going on there. I don't really have a theory on it. It's just the thing I've noticed.
Yeah. Interesting. Let me ask you this. I mean, like, if you, I guess how do I phrase this question? How else do we find cancer in kids if we don't touch them?
There's no way, unfortunately.
Right. It's like you don't want the little boy to have cancer. I had to. I feel like when you look at people who are like, I think maybe in the past 10 years, people were sort of like super militantly atheist, but now maybe they're sort of coming back to that stuff.
I think definitely that kind of Richard Dawkins atheist thing kind of ran its course. In a way. I mean, partly because it had an ideological usefulness during the Iraq War, basically, right? Like, so all these atheists became super celebrities when they were trying to drum up support for the Iraq War and for the war in Afghanistan and stuff like that. And it was very much the military project was like, we're going to bring freedom and, freedom from these like Islamists, like, tribal ways of life, and stuff like that. So
you think Christianity was kind of like implied that it was going to come back?
Well, I think it was just that at that time, because those people, like Christopher Hitchens, for example, was most famous of the new atheist people. And like, while the others were kind of dorky, he was like quite charming and stuff like that. But he was also totally pro Iraq war. Like, those two projects were part of the same thing. There's no question in my mind it was an ideological thing. But now, I don't know. I guess it just feels like when people think of atheists, they kind of think of those like YouTube guys who are like really annoying.
Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a few videos.
What, have I just said something awkward? Is one of you like an?
It's just I love those types on YouTube.
Okay,
are great.
Yeah, it's great that people think they like figured out life when they realize like the Bible's not.
Yeah, but it's like, they think that it's like, they think that the fact that the Bible is not literally true.
Yeah, right.
It's like they like owned their parents.
Yeah. You believe in God. It's like when you watch Zeitgeist and you go home for Thanksgiving and you're like, 9/11 was an inside job, right? You fucking sheep. So I want to ask you about this. So like I did a show last night. I was on stage. I have some pedophilia material that I don't do every night, but it kind of like led into this thing. So I do this joke about how like I know I'm not attracted to kids because I saw a really hot kid on the beach one day and he had real nice perky tits that were and I'd like describe the kid's tits. Come out to our live show, by the way, Thursday night, Bravi Ragazzi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That dude came out again.
Hell yeah.
What's his name?
Starts with an O.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, though.
Shout out to him. That guy's name we can't remember.
They call him O.
But anyway, so I was doing this bit, and then this lady in the front row goes, "You're fucked up," and then the whole room clapped, like for her.
Oh.
I was like, you know what? I was like, I took 2 trains to get here. No, 3 trains actually. The N, the L, and the G.
Ugh.
Were they genuinely mad?
They weren't mad, but that material doesn't always go over. I'm kind of
doesn't always land.
Yeah, I'm a genius, and people don't appreciate me. But she was like, "You're fucked up," and the whole room was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Fuck all you people." But I mean, like, obviously, stories about sexual abuse are very hard to like stomach, and I was watching a report from the guy who's the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, and it's like really. It's really fucking sad the way they describe this and the way it's all covered up. And, like, I mean, this one girl was, like, some priest got her pregnant and then, like, paid for an abortion. And then a bishop wrote a letter. He was like, I know this is a hard time for you in your life right now, but that letter was to the rapist and not to the girl.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
and it's just
sad?
like, it's just crazy how, I don't know, how, like, up their own ass they are.
Yeah.
But I guess part of me feels like, maybe do we need to like change the way we talk about sexual abuse and maybe not keep it so like hush hush and be more, if we're a little more open about it, like maybe that's a way of like sharing these people's burdens. I don't know. Like, Matt, you ever been sexually abused?
yeah. Let's talk about it. No, I do know what you mean,
Matt.
though, like, because, like, everything's under lock and key from the Catholic
look at
Church,
this,
right?
Look at this guy's mouth, Imagine him as a 14-year-old.
Yeah, it's so much hotter.
Yeah.
Hotter to priests.
Matt was in the Air Force, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you
Don't
believe
you
that?
think people in the Air Force are, like, kind of like cowards, though? Because they just sit in the plane and bomb people?
Yeah, we're like...
Oh, yeah.
They're not on the ground.
Yeah, we're not fighting on your level. We're, like, way up above you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in the Air Force, though. Can you believe that?
If you want to, like, call him a coward and spit on him, it's totally fine.
Well, I mean, you could still crash.
Yeah. That's true.
If
you're John McCain.
Or be shot out of the sky.
I didn't fly any airplanes, but...
Oh, my
yeah.
God. What did you do?
I was like I was a computer systems administrator.
What did my fucking tax money even pay for?
So basically, I got people Google And I got deployed a few times. I've been to South Korea and Qatar.
Oh, wow.
Never been like anywhere like dangerous. So pretty easy.
Nice.
Did you guys ever see, I don't know if it was ever big here, the show Recine?
No.
No.
It's a really excellent British series. The main writer is this guy called Chris Morris, and he does this like very dark kind of stuff, but and it's like in the style of a news show kind of. But they did this famous episode which people went completely nuts about at the time. Must be 20 years old now, and it was a pedophile themed episode.
Nice.
Ew.
How did I miss that?
And it was very much
Yeah.
it was very much about kind of, in Britain in particular, there is a real like public hysteria and very there's this kind of like almost vigilanteism about like pedophiles, you know. And there's these stories, I mean, this is probably bullshit, I'm sure it is total bullshit, but an example of the type of thing you would hear is like this story of where like a pediatrician's office got attacked because they thought it was a pedophile or something like that.
Really?
Like that's probably bullshit, but you know, there's like in the tabloids they're big into like, they love exposing pedophile. They're like a little bit obsessed with the topic basically. And this was kind of parodying that. But there is a bit in it where they do this like like, you know, To Catch a Predator, that show. It's that kind of thing, right? Like they're really, they love catching like pedophiles.
I love that entrapment.
Yeah, I feel
as
like
a fucking adult, you like pretend you're a kid.
Yeah, well, the person is always like a teenager, not an actual like
Right.
infant, right?
Right.
And also, the teenager has always invited the person, which is not good, I know, but like it's not the same as an actual child,
Right,
you know,
right,
like
right.
being like
Just like getting in
abused.
that mindset though of like writing the same like what a child would write. Like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like, oh, what's this guy? Oh, what are you doing, Mike?
So I was just thinking, like, if me and you ever got really into pedophile hunting.
I could like answer the door and be like,
put this on.
I could answer the door.
Like, doesn't he look like a kid?
And then
If you
I'm
just
like, oh, I have laundry I gotta pull out right, and then you come in and you're like, what are you doing here?
yeah, you totally could. And I grow a mustache for it, specifically for it. I feel like that's what you do when you're retired. You either get really into like woodworking or pedophile hunting.
Yeah.
It's one of the two.
All right.
Yeah, you every once in a while you see something like that where it's like yeah, this guy is a pedophile hunter, and it's like that guy should probably be investigated.
Yeah,
for it.
exactly.
Who's,
Yeah.
who's like taking it. Yeah.
Yeah, a vigilante pedophile hunter. If it's part of some like government task force that has like oversight, that seems like a little bit better.
But you know, it's funny because I was talking to a friend about a British friend about this a while ago, and I was sort of laughing at this stuff, right? Like the sort of tendency of the like British tabloid press and stuff like that to always to have this to catch a predator sort of weird like obsession with catching pedophiles.
Yeah.
And he didn't think it was funny at all, and he was saying like, look, in Ireland, if you're a pedophile, you just go into the Catholic Church. But in Britain, if you're a pedophile and you want like institutional protection, you will find it in elite institutions in British society. So, you know, he said like, look, I know it looks stupid and people can make fun of it easily because it's like, it's like tabloid and it's very sensationalist and so on. But he was saying like there actually is a problem in elite institutions where like children who are in the care of these institutions, like who are like foster kids and stuff like that, tend to be abused. So are more likely to be abused. So it's kind of like. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of...
It sounds kind of like Pizzagate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point is, I guess, that the Recine, I mean, I really recommend watching it. It's very, very funny and it's very brilliant. But it gave me a little bit of a different perspective on things because there is a kind of there is a social class element to it, you know, because the kids who are far more likely to get abused are going to be from poorer backgrounds, are more likely to have lost their parents or something like that. So the paranoia about that is not.
I think Batman probably didn't. Nothing happened to him, right?
Yeah.
He had the money to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, could you imagine what type of power he'd have then?
He had so much money. Alfred was a pedophile, but he would just pay out. He would give Alfred money to go find boys to go buy child pornography.
But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say about the Brasso show. Was that there's a bit in it where the kind of like the host of the news show who's kind of pedophile hunting and who's being really sensationalist about it brings out a pedophile to lambast him on the show, and then brings out his own son, and he's like, look at my son. And then he says,
the guy to
the
pedophile. Yeah. No, this isn't real, though. It's a parody, right? And so he's saying, like, do you find him attractive? And the pedophile, who I think, if I remember correctly, the pedophile, if I remember correctly, is in those, like, stocks, where your hands and your head are in the, like, wooden thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I just don't find him attractive. but that
not my type.
But that actually happened to me because I went on holiday with a pedophile when I was a child. And I didn't get abused.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, listen, I'm sure you're a hot enough kid to...
like we're disappointed.
Thanks. What happened?
Oh, he was like a Christian brother, which is... I don't know if you're actually technically a priest when you're a Christian brother, but they typically teach in boys' schools, right? So that's in rural Ireland, it's typically the girls go to the convent school and the boys go to the Christian brothers' school. So he's a teacher in one of those. And it came out years later that he was a pedophile, that he had abused loads of people.
So he wasn't rich enough for protection?
Yeah, I guess possibly. Good. Yeah, but
someone
anyway,
just knocked on Angela's door when she was a kid, and he was like, "You want me to take your daughter on holiday?"
But yeah, no, sorry.
Holiday's like vacation. It's what Europeans call vacation.
So basically, he left the whatever it is Christian Brothers and got married and had 2 daughters, and they were around my age. So that's how I ended up going on holiday with the pedophile.
Yeesh. I always thought it would be bad if you were like one of those sensational tabloids and then like you got it wrong once.
And they like beat someone up?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's happened.
You say something like, this pizza restaurant is running a pedophile ring, and it's really not. It's just a pizza restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a sketch in my SNL packet where it's like a dating service for Trump people. And these 2 people meet, and they go to a pizza shop, and they pull out a gun. They're like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah.
So, I've said that already.
Yeah.
Such a hack.
No, it's
Why
all
do
right.
people listen to the show?
No, it's great. Once the sketch is made, you could just link people to it, and then be like, "I shot this cool thing, huh?"
Yeah.
Go rate it.
Yeah. Well, that's a shame. Sorry that the guy wasn't interested, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I know.
What are you gonna do?
Maybe he didn't like children with red hair or something like that.
He was like, "I got one rule: no gingers."
A man with his principles.
Yeah. Well, it's such a gray area though, because when I was 11, I lost my virginity to my babysitter, who was 32. So.
Really?
No. Dante Nero says that's what he did though. He's a comic.
We were all just gonna be like, huh. Do we have enough time to unpack that? No,
that is something. But I think that is something that guys. That's something that guys brag about a lot. I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Fucking since I was 12.
Yeah, I've
been fucking 40-year-old since I was 12. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was a teacher at my school that had like a relationship with 2 guys. I think she got drunk at a club one night, and they picked her up, and she was like the coolest teacher.
And this is high school, not like middle school.
Yeah, middle school. They stole their parents' Toyota
club.
RAV4. And they were like, "We'll be right there. Just sit tight. Don't take a ride from a stranger."
Jesus.
It was before their voices.
Yeah.
Changed. Yeah. There's a comic here named Nick DiPaolo, and he's like a super like right winger, but he's like really funny. And it's a shame that he's like his beliefs are so far right because he's like a really good comic, but he'll only go so far. He's got this joke about To Catch a Predator, where he's like, "Yeah, I'm amazed at how cheap some of these pedophiles are. They show up with like a bag of Subway sandwiches and they're like, the girl's like, oh yeah, is that a 6-inch tuna on wheat? Someone's up for anal." And then he's like, and he's like, And then Chris Hansen, Mr. Cockblock, walks.
I love that.
Also, Mr. Cockblock. Chris Hansen, Mr. Cockblock, walks in. he's always like, you think this is right? The guy's like, Chris, I live with my parents. I make minimum wage. So you think the pussy wagon pulls up to my house every day and beeps the fucking horn?
Oh, this is slightly off topic, but it's just something. You mind if I? Yeah. Do you think, because you're talking about that comedian and the sort of like the political stuff, do you think that that comedians kind of have to be a bit right wing now to be kind of edgy
Subversive?
or funny? Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing, Mike?
Yeah.
You're
Hanging out with a
this
bunch of
ironic
leftists.
woke.
I know.
You kind of oscillate, I'd say, your positions, but you're like sarcastic when you.
Yeah, I think it's a weird time because everybody else is being so like, sanctimonious and maybe you do, but then it's like you can't be too far right or you'll get like completely ostracized. I feel like so. I don't know, but I think everybody is getting a little sick of that, like calling Trump
Yeah.
an orange idiot.
Yeah.
Although there does seem to be like a market for it. So
Yeah.
it is kind of weird. But you must get sick of.
Oh, I just think it's so tedious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but people are like getting jobs and stuff. And then we're over here doing our own thing, talking about pedophiles.
Yeah. We're doing real news stories.
Yeah.
And they're just talking about they're talking in circles.
Yeah. Someone I saw it was on the Majority Report. There was a thing. So Trevor Noah is like Mr.
Are you talking about the Aborigines women?
Mr. Woke.
Trouble?
Well, he said that thing about Aboriginal women.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, Aboriginal women are fucking ugly and disgusting. I don't like them.
He's paraphrasing, just in case you're wondering.
I want to set them on fire because they are ugly pigs.
Yeah.
When did he say this thing? I know that he said something about
It's an old
I think
joke
recently-
he wrote. I think
Okay.
it's an old joke that he wrote that was like making fun of the stereotype. And I didn't realize this was a stereotype until I read this racist article. But it was like the stereotype that Aborigines African women are ugly. And I was like, what? I didn't realize that was a stereotype. But it's an old bit that he did, I believe.
Yeah, so Trevor Noah, obviously everyone has to, build him up to be better than what he was, but you go through his old tweets and it's all just like, I hate fat women, I want to push a retarded guy down a flight of stairs,
Not that easy,
go back.
but...
And then, he had a bit on one of his specials where, I guess there was, a strike, there was some kind of strike in South Africa, these miners were striking and they got shot by the cops, and he did a bit where he defends. I'll show it to you after we record, but he did a bit where he defends the cops who killed,
Mm-hmm.
So he's not a good person, guys. You know who's a good person is Matt Anderson.
That's right. That's
Don't
right,
you think
folks.
that is a waste of pedophile bait? That face.
You do have a boyish face.
I'm okay. Thanks, guys. It's like you're getting too excited about it. You're like, it's like you're wasting good food.
Yeah.
You're too excited.
I mean, you're too tall to look like a kid, but if you just
If I walked around on my knees,
if you sent pedophiles a photo of you with your shirt off, next to a giant table, a giant.
Yeah. Get big everything.
Look
to
at the
make
big
it look
chair.
Like I'm smaller. They're like a big pencil.
You're all right, prove to me you're a kid.
Like Pee-wee's Funhouse.
Yeah. It's they're prove to me you're a kid, and you just send him a picture of you with one of those giant novelty pencils. They're all right, checks out. I'll be right over.
Yeah, I'm wearing overalls.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
backwards hat.
that hat and some big over. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to ask you that before. Do you think maybe we need to change the way we talk about sexual abuse?
I mean, I don't think that's really going to get to the root of it. What is at the root of it is very hard to really...
You don't think I'm doing the Lord's work, going on stage and talking about Pedophilia.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that, I think this is something like Slavoj Žižek said that like that pedophilia is part of the structure of the. I think he described it as like the institutional unconscious of the Catholic Church. So in other words, it's kind of built into the sexual psychology of the Catholic Church in a way. So because it is so obsessed with repressing sexuality, it has this underside that is more perverse than the general public would accept.
Yeah.
So it's both more pious and more perverse than the sexuality that dominates in the general public. So there's all these really complicated like psychological things going on, and they're very deep and very hard to understand. And I don't really know. I mean, I think possibly the only thing that would change would be to just fundamentally change the church completely, which would involve priests being allowed to marry, which would change the entire culture. But then it wouldn't,
if they were allowed to have sex.
Yeah, but it wouldn't. Then it wouldn't be the Catholic Church, right? It would be something totally different. But what I often wonder,
why is that? Like, why is that so important?
I
that
don't
they take
know.
this like vow of celibacy.
I don't know, but I don't know. It's
Because aren't there different factions of Catholicism that allow that? Like Greek Catholicism, I thought.
Greek Orthodox.
Okay.
Greek Orthodox
sorry
is
about
allowed.
this fucking idiot. Over
Yeah.
God damn it.
And Russian
me,
as
I'm
well.
just pedophile bait.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Matt. Do your job, okay?
When I was in school, they're like, "You won't have to learn anything. You're just pedophile bait." I'm like the equivalent of a pretty girl.
Someday, a retired guy will find you and use photos of you next to a giant pencil. Yeah, to feed his hobby.
I mean, monks, for example, right? If you look at like, monks who actually have to live not just without sex, but without all kinds of things. Some take a vow of like whatever it's called when you don't speak, silence or whatever. Yeah, they have to live this very simple life and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't see. And
then every once in a while, you'll hear a report where they're like, "We're having trouble finding people who want to be monks. We don't understand."
Yeah. Well, actually, my dad told me that they had a cousin. My dad had a cousin who was in a monastery, and they used to break him out every now and again. They would put him under like a blanket and like break him out of the monastery, and they would go drinking like pochine, which is like illegal, like really hard liquor, and they would just get drunk for a few days and smuggle him back in again.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
There's always a
like
way around these things,
For the Amish,
Yeah.
When they turn a certain age, they get to go rebel. And use all that electronics and stuff. Same thing.
Yeah.
So if you take away the vow of celibacy, I mean, I guess the idea is that you're meant to be really sacrificing something and giving up something, and like retreating like out of the material world into spiritual like higher things. And the thing is, the Catholic Church is kind of giving in on a lot of things, like modernizing, and has been since the 60s. So at a certain point, like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Why even have it? Like, if you're just going to
modernizing since the 60s.
Well, I mean, I don't pay very close attention to it, but I know that like Vatican II is meant to be the moment where it starts to modernize. So, even like Mass used to be said in Latin with the priest back to the congregation.
Really?
Yeah, and like certainly in schools there was like I'm sure this wasn't part of its official dogma, but I mean Catholic schools were like quite violent and like extremely strict about sexuality. So and Francis is loosening things up in all kinds of ways. Didn't he so on like abortion and homosexuality and divorce and everything.
It's fine to rub your penis against the furniture. That used to be outlawed, but it's okay.
So you want to have sex with a tree?
Yeah, just cut the hole and put mayonnaise in this hole in the tree.
I am only but man.
Yeah.
But isn't he? I don't think he's Italian though.
All
right?
Like,
sorry.
Right.
He's Argentinian or something.
South American.
Yeah.
We got a fact checker over here.
his first words he ever
Someone's
spoke.
listening like, thank God, Angela. Yeah.
The
Sorry.
first words he ever spoke as a pope were like so colloquial. They were like Buenos Aires, Buenos tardes.
Oh, he said Buenos Aires, like, yeah, good evening.
Everyone's like, yeah. Everyone's so excited to have like this like.
Yeah, but and the
Fancy
guy
Argentinian,
before
yeah.
him, Ratzinger, came out and he was like, "You are all a scum."
Yeah, yeah.
He just threw his garbage on them. They were like, "Thank you." Yeah.
Great.
Where were we? You were saying something about, I forget.
Well, I was just saying that I don't know if changing the way we talk about it is really going to make a difference one way or the other.
Yeah, they need new rules. You know?
All right, I guess I'm not a hero.
Well, because it's not. It's a problem.
They need oversight. That's what they need. Like
Yeah.
the church should be able to like, if a priest gets moved, the church should have like a way to figure out how and why, so they could follow. Like, so families would be able to follow up, and it's not like they're fighting this big organization that has lawyers.
Yeah.
They got lawyers. They
Yeah.
got a team of lawyers.
Well, it's also like it's kind of ridiculous that so much has been done to cover it up, because it's like Papa John says one N-word and they have to like change the whole company.
Yeah.
But then like this is like ongoing, and it's still it. I guess the point is it doesn't seem like it's going to be fixed anytime soon, because even like Pope Francis was like, "We're so sorry about this," but he didn't really give any concrete solutions on how to like fix the problem. He's like, "Sorry, we let you down," but it doesn't. It does seem like they're in need of like radical reform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At
Sorry.
which point, what is the point of them really? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Like you're
we
just
let
going to
you
end
down.
up like a kind of. You're just going to end up like one of these. Because if you look at Protestantism by comparison, somebody was showing me the other day this like progressive church where they like brew craft beer and they're like everyone's
And you're
gay,
like,
or
yeah.
and they're like and they're
It's required to be gay.
yeah, it's required to be gay, and everyone there is like dressed like a slob, and they're just like trying to be like the absolute opposite to everything that the Catholic Church is, and I just think that's
Meanwhile, no pedophilia.
well, yeah, true, but like but that's where you kind of end up with Protestantism, isn't it? Because
What if craft beer is the cure to pedophilia?
Yeah, it's just as simple as
yeah,
brewing your
It's actually the
own
lowest.
microbrewery.
but it's like once you give up on any of the ultra traditionalist rituals. You may as well just topple the whole thing, basically.
Yeah.
None of the rest of it makes any sense. Because rituals don't make any sense. They're not rational, And so if you're going to do that, you're just going to end up with one of these, like, interfaith centers, in like a red brick building that, like, Protestants have that are just like, what's the point?
And
Like,
everyone's wearing jeans.
and it's
You're
just...
like, get me out of here. This is
Yeah.
disrespectful. I do remember, like, because my mom would always complain about our Catholic church because my dad is super Catholic, and my mom was like, I don't really like it there. And then she'd be like, we should go to St. Mark's. It was like a Methodist church. And then, like, I think we went to St. Mark's, and it was cool. Like, the priest had a guitar, and people were wearing jeans. But part of you is like,
Yeah.
get it together, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I
This is
just
too
think...
lax.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if
You
I...
need to have order, or there's,
If I
Yeah.
ever did go to back to mass again, which I probably won't, I mean, I can't see, I'd have to have some weird, like, life-changing moment or something like that.
Yeah.
I actually would go to the Latin mass. Like, I just think
Yeah.
all or nothing, like, there's no point in having these, like...
But would you understand? Would you understand it?
No.
It'd be like the Da Vinci Code.
But that's the thing, though. But that's the beauty of Catholicism. It's not meant to be understood. Like Umberto Eco said that, like the Catholicism is like the Mac, and Protestantism is like the PC. With the Mac, you don't need to understand the inner workings of the program. You have the icons, and they intuitively bring you around. The Catholic Church was designed for illiterate peasants to be able to understand, and in many
Italians.
but also that's why it's so visually beautiful. But also, I mean, there is an argument that says not just that, but that illiterate peasants who were supposed to be the original, congregation of the church, who understood the language and the ideas and the rituals of the church through imagery, some kind of art critics have talked about how basically we, who are now just like ultra rational, can no longer see the art and the beauty of the church in the way that those people did. So even, for example, in cinema, you naturally, when you pan in cinema, say from left to right, let's say the English-speaking world where you read from left to right, the audience intuitively knows that you're moving forward in time if you pan from left to right. So stuff like that. There is this whole visual language of the church.
Yeah, all those like intangibles that I guess we kind of
Yeah,
miss.
exactly. That are very that are very intuitive and very meaningful, and that because we are always becoming more and more rational and kind of like utilitarian and stuff, we can't really see them the way they were intended to be seen anymore. But so I think that's kind of why, like, that's behind maybe some of this weird thing where I was saying like all these like really like smart, like bookish sort of Protestant like young people are all converting to Catholicism. I think that must be what's behind it. That in a way there's no point in doing any of it unless you're going to return to the original, form of it.
So
basically.
we can't really fix it without.
Maybe
No,
people
exactly, yeah.
Maybe people are just doing it as a fuck you to Sam Harris,
Yeah,
When
possibly.
he's
They
like, I'm an atheist and I know everything.
Yeah, they were just so annoyed by the new atheists that they're all becoming Catholics.
Yeah.
You know how McDonald's is like trying to get rid of employees by like replacing them with robots?
Yeah.
Maybe the Catholic Church could try to do a little bit of the same thing with their
And they're like,
priests.
come here, it's a cancer check. I have to make sure you don't have cancer.
Well, we're trying to get rid of it, So these would be good robots we program, Mike.
Oh, all right, fine.
So,
But they're like, there's still a bug in this priest. I can't seem to get it.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
seem to. Yeah.
And you would go up at Mass and a little hand would come out and put the body of
Yeah.
Christ into your mouth. And
yeah,
stuff.
it would be like the Ford assembly line for
Yeah.
the faith.
So we're at about an hour. So let's just take a quick break and then we'll wrap up with anything else.
Okay.
And we're back. What are we gonna put in there in that break?
White noise.
Yeah. I just showed Angela the clip of the guy from Staten Island breaking his Robert De Niro photo, and a lot of people are making fun of this clip, but I think we both found it very, very sad.
Yeah. I
know?
mean, he seems really hurt.
Yeah. And he could have put a new picture of, I don't know, one of his heroes in that frame. He smashes the frame. Perfectly good
He's like,
frame.
and now I have a new favorite actor, Antonio Sabato Jr. Never said a bad word against. And I was reading about that guy, and apparently he was like, it's not yes, I like Trump, but I have respect for any president. And I think that is kind of like, maybe, I don't know if it's a thing with Italians, but we like that order. And I feel like even my mom, who like didn't like Obama, was very like respectful of him. And she was like, well, he's the president. I have to do what he says. Which is
I
funny.
do have to go to my room, Mr. President.
Yeah. And she was like, I have to support him. He's my president.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why you don't have heroes, They let you down. Do you have any heroes?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure I do. I'd have to think about it.
Right.
On the spot,
Yeah.
Right. People do let you down, though. Anyway, all right, so we'll wrap up in a second, but let's talk about, we talk about organized crime on the show. Let's talk about some gangsters, huh? Let's
Sure.
talk about these guys who have a gangster's mentality. They don't give a fuck. Let's talk about the intellectual dark web, Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and Sam Harris and all those guys. I think my girlfriend, she kind of like, I think she kind of unironically likes Ben Shapiro. I caught her watching a.
You caught her.
I caught her watching a Ben Shapiro, a compilation of Ben Shapiro owning people, and she was like, "This guy is fucking funny."
All those guys that abandoned Owen Benjamin.
All those guys that turned on Owen Benjamin.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But I guess, like, when you look at those guys, do you have anybody who you think is, like, your favorite? Do you think any one of those guys is particularly, like, the worst or more damaging, or maybe one of them is redeeming, or I don't know?
Well, I think basically what's happening with that whole... You see, it's funny because on the one hand, they're controversial in some ways because they, like own the libs or whatever, right? But they are very much... I think they're like a real... almost like a release valve for... that is acceptable in kind of mainstream discourse for this like energy that was kind of going much further to the right.
Okay.
So, for example, there was like a very glowing piece about them in the New York Times, which was like, I think it was in the New York Times. It was very much trying to set them up as this, as a real kind of a milieu, like a serious kind of intellectual movement or something like that. And you have to wonder, like if they're getting that level of like institutional support, like how dangerous their ideas really are,
Right. Mm. Yeah, what is that? Why is there so much they really are being like platformed and celebrated?
What are some of their main ideas that are...
They're basically they're what they would call themselves. Most of them are. This is another funny thing about them, right? A lot of them came from this show, The Rubin Report.
Yeah.
Or like and the idea of that show was kind of that. Oh, it's like a platform for free speech, and any ideas can be aired here. But as Glenn Greenwald
was like, talk to me about race and IQ. I want to learn about this.
Well, like as Glenn Greenwald pointed out, like they have basically like universal, like they have uniform opinions on pretty much everything. Mm-hmm. So they're basically kind of trying to. I mean, my theory on them is that they're trying to use some of the like energy, the youthful energy that kind of. Of all the people like Milo Yiannopoulos and these kinds of people who've come about in the last couple of years, that is like an anti-PC movement, if you like, and they're trying to channel that into something that is basically politically harmless. They tend to be totally on board with U.S. foreign policy, the permanent war in the Middle East, basically. Mm-hmm. They tend to be classical liberals, so they're totally on board with, that they're very pro-capitalists. Okay. And they're essentially kind of harmless in terms of ideas. They're not actually really challenging anyone that has power. I mean, they're not challenging any institution of power, anything like that. Whereas at the same time, if you look at like what's happening to say, the alt-right, which was like, very ascendant even just say a year ago, they've all been deplatformed and stuff like that. So. I don't know. It just seems to me like there is some attempt to kind of channel the energy that has the anti-PC, sort of anti-left energy into something that's very safe and that's very harmless. Yeah. Which is what this intellectual dark web thing is about.
Okay.
And that's not you with the power tools, right, Mike?
That's not me, but somebody's got a nice piece of fucking machinery out there.
Happening in the middle.
What are they doing? Excuse me, we're podcasting here. Where is that coming from?
Downstairs, I think.
It's my neighbor. No, it's already closed. Oh. That's all right. Yeah, well, Dave Rubin also gets money from the Koch brothers, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking the other day, like, because there are, in comedy, there are a bunch of, like, should we wait for that to stop, or... I don't know.
I don't think there's planning around it.
Yeah, okay. In comedy, there are a lot of guys, like, there's, like, some Long Island comics who are like, yeah, people don't talk to me anymore, but I got to stick to my principles and say what I got to say. And it's like, I just think it's so sad if you're doing that and you're not getting Koch brothers money.
Yeah. But you can also see a lot of these kind of astroturfed looking intellectual dark web is such a cringe term. People are like say Steven Crowder, or like there's this organization Turning Point USA, and you can see like that they've got money, right, because the production values are all really good, and they've kind of got. It's like they're taking some of this. They're trying to take some of the style of like anti-PC kind of online politics, but their message is just basically let's have more like socialism sucks, and free market capitalism is great, and they're, as I said, just like they have no real analysis of any structure of power that's kind of challenging in any way. But they're using some of the anti-PC style, so it's like it feels like something kind of rebellious, but it isn't, basically.
It isn't, yeah. Interesting. Well, you have anything to say?
I think it's just unfortunate timing that this guy started working on power tools.
How about you say I'm sorry for forgetting the recording equipment?
Oh yeah. Also, I'm sorry for forgetting the recording equipment. If this sounds okay, leave us 5 stars at least.
Say sorry to the fans.
Sorry, fans.
Say sorry. I'm a dum-dum.
I'm a dum-dum.
All right.
It could always be worse.
If you guys want to see a shirtless pic of Matt next to a giant pencil, become a Patreon subscriber, huh? $10 a month gets you as many shirtless pics of Matthew as you would like. And yeah, you want to plug anything?
No.
All right, but you got a podcast coming out.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'm doing interviews
together,
with people, and the ones I have so far are like Slavoj Žižek and Patrick Deneen, who's written this great book, Why Liberalism Failed. And I'm hoping to kind of interview some like anti-war leftists, and yeah. Cool.
Well, if you want to interview someone about the fall of Robert De Niro, you can talk to me. Well, thanks for coming on. I hope we get to do this again. Please buy Angela's book, Kill All Normies. I read it. Great book. And follow her on... Are you on... You're not on Twitter, right?
I'm going to go back. I absolutely despise Twitter, but I'm going to have to go back to... If I get this podcast up and running, I'll have to self-promote.
Well, go after... Start... If you see anyone bullying Angela on Twitter, bully them back on the count of us.
Yes, please. I definitely need some white knights on there.
Yeah. Right. You can't talk to her that way. Angela, love your work. Do you ever come to... Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for listening. Support us on Patreon. Email us, sitdownpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram @sitdownpod. Matt's phone number, I gave it out in the beginning of the episode. And that's it. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.